Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Great to have you along. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Aimee Bateman. Aimee is a fascinating person, and I'm so glad she said yes to coming on to the show and having a conversation, because she has a wonderful track record in business, and she's kindly agreed to sort of come on, share some of that story, and also talk about how she's building in public and looking forward to the future. So before I get into that, Aimee, thank you very much for joining me today.
Hi, Ben. Thank you. Thank you for asking me. Yeah. And thank you for being persistent, because I think you invited me to be on a little while ago, but I was quite busy. So thanks for being patient and asking me back. I really enjoy your podcast. So good to be here.
And you're in what, Cardiff? Is that right?
Yeah. Sunny Wales.
Sunny Wales. Yeah. I spent a lot of time there for work and stuff. I remember it for being beautiful and interesting and all sorts of things. I also remember it for being in an angry kind of unionized work meeting as an HR manager or something. And I missed a flight, but I was actually in a meeting next door to the airport, and it was just driving me crazy during that meeting, because I'm going, I can see the airport and I'm going to miss my flight because you guys are. Anyway, so, but I won't hold it against Cardiff, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I'm going to read some notes, folks, because Aimee's just done so much, and so I want to do it justice. So Aimee spent 22 years in the career development space, a former recruiter who became a career performance coach and eventually the CEO of a venture-backed Edtech startup. As a recruiter, she placed over 2,000 professionals, oh my gosh, in new roles before founding Careercake, which was an e-learning company that was voted the UK's #1 career development platform. And as the CEO, Aimee defied the odds by securing VC and angel investments across 2 continents, despite operating in a landscape where less than 1% of funding goes to female founders, which is absolutely true. So together with her amazing team, Careercake scaled into 42 countries, supporting companies such as Nationwide, Companies House, and Tech Nation to upskill their people. And in 2022, Aimee sold Careercake to the amazing Dublin-based skills development platform SocialTalent before exiting and giving birth just 30 days later. Oh my gosh. So 10 million people have taken Aimee's professional development courses, including 3 million on LinkedIn Learning, and she's been featured on as a career expert on the BBC and Sky, etc. And we are then going to talk about the future. But Aimee, that's amazing. What a journey you've been on. Are you fully recovered yet?
No, I think people tell you how hard it's going to be. People have been there, done it, got the T-shirt, people that have built. And you don't believe them, right? There's no way that you can ever fully imagine how hard it's going to be. And I almost think it's quite good that we don't believe them, because otherwise we'd never start. Although sometimes I think that as entrepreneurs, we're kind of a bit messed in the head and we do it anyway. If I think about it like that, it's really hard to comprehend. It was just about week by week, month by month, staying close to the vision and remaining sort of radically focused on what we were doing. I think that might be why I said no to your podcast previously, and just build it. And I don't think I've quite caught my breath. It's been 18 months since. Obviously having a baby quite quickly after that has something to do with it. But there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make when you're building a business of that scale. Yeah. And I don't think I've been able to pat myself on the back just yet. I'm hoping that will come.
Yeah. Well, let me say that then. Congratulations, an amazing journey. And I don't think people quite understand also the pressure. Plenty of people can build a business and grow it and so on, but to build that with venture capital backing is one big thing. Suddenly there's a board.
That's exactly right.
There's a big one there, and a team who are looking at payroll being made every month. Yeah. Customers. Yeah. That's the perfect storm of stress, I'm imagining.
Yeah. And I think the dynamic of VC and angel investment, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there. I mean, that adds a different dynamic, because the second that you take external venture funding, you have to exit the business, or they need an exit within 5 to 8 years. That's the expectation. So building a business where you can provide a 3, 4, 5 times return and sell it within 5 years, that's crazy, right? Like, what are the odds? The odds are crazy anyway, but we still play the game because we think we can do it. And luckily I did do it. We did find an acquirer in SocialTalent as well. I'm sure you're familiar with them, and I'm sure a lot of your learners are familiar with them. To build something that we were so proud of and that we loved the bones of, and then to hand it over to a business like SocialTalent, I couldn't have asked for a better outcome. Apart from the fact that they're at the cutting edge and they're a great business and value add, they're actually really nice people.
Oh, nice.
And that just made the end of a 12-year journey just really wonderful for me and the team. Couldn't have been happy with the outcome.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, because we've all seen like Wall Street and things like that where there's hostile takeovers. And certainly in my career in the corporate world, I was involved where there were acquisitions, divestments and stuff. And sometimes there were happy days and other times there were not so much. So when you can have that perfect meeting of happy buyer, happy seller, that's the great way to be.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know Careercake, so you mentioned in the intro that you were a recruiter, which meant that you had lots of insights on how to help people either land roles, develop their career, that kind of stuff. And so you intended then to package that up as what bite-sized learning for people. And I remember reading somewhere that you started out by buying a camera for £10 on eBay or something like that. So can you tell us about that part, just that initial starting part?
Yeah, so actually Careercake was never meant to be this edtech platform providing e-learning support for businesses to upskill their people. That was never the plan. I don't think I was even really aware of that as sort of a 29-year-old recruiter. I just know that the credit crunch hit sort of 2010, 2011. I was the manager of the Welsh region for Robert Half at the time, which is an American, for those that don't know, a big American, I'm going to say a big American animal, a big American beast of a recruitment business. And we were having the most talented people coming into our offices and we just didn't have any jobs for them. Certainly where we were positioned in the market, we were very much public sector, we were very much manufacturing, and the manufacturing in sort of South Wales was massively impacted by the credit crunch. On the wall, we ate the credit crunch for breakfast. You know, we were trying to stay positive, but it was, well, we know there's a global crisis worldwide. So it was horrific, for want of a better word, and we had no jobs for them because why would somebody pay us £8,000 to find them a new finance director when they could go out and find a finance director themselves because everybody was looking for work? So they were coming in the office, and when I say they were coming in crying, I'm not exaggerating. Like they were coming in crying. I remember there was this one guy, and I don't remember his name. I call him John. And he has been with me every day for my career since. In fact, he was the story I told to raise all of my investment rounds. He had such a profound impact on me. He came into our offices and he'd been out of work for a while. He was a dad. He had 3 children. He was a finance director, really, really talented, sort of early 50s. And I remember I was placing him into a business and he was coming in for his like pep talk, you know, before he went to get, hopefully, the job offer. I was going to get a really big commission. I had Eye of the Tiger playing in my head, like, this is all, you know. Yeah, and at 29, I was a little bit cocky and, you know, I was quite confident. I was in a recruitment sale job. I remember going in to give him a pep talk and I walked into a room and he was white as a ghost. He looked like he was going to throw up. He was broken. And I remember in that moment just having a serious reality check in that, you know, I've got a man sat in front of me shaking and Eye of the Tiger stopped playing in my head and I just wanted to cry with him. He'd been out of work for nearly a year and he was really struggling to look after his family. And I think when you are being rejected and rejected and rejected for a long period of time, you can just forget your value in the world. And I remember thinking, if he doesn't get this job, holy cow, what's he going to be like when he gets home? What's he going to be like with his wife tonight? Is he going to take his kids to the park tomorrow? Or is he just going to sit on his phone watching TV, feeling depressed?
Yeah.
And I had this realization that I'm not a marriage counselor and I certainly am not a life coach, but if I can help somebody just for 8 hours a day go somewhere where they feel seen, heard and valued, when they go home, they will be able to show up for the people that matter most, the people that they love. They'll be able to look at themselves in the mirror and like what they see. And that was when I decided that I wasn't just about getting people jobs. Because like, how exciting is that? Not really. You'll get a job, you'll stay there 2-3 years and then you'll move to another job. Like it wasn't about that for me. It was about providing an environment where people feel like they matter. And if I can get them in that room, into a room where they feel like they matter, then that was exciting. So I just went and bought literally a £9, $9.99 camera on eBay. Bearing in mind, this is 2010. Nobody was doing anything on YouTube in 2010 in the career space. Yeah, there was no one there. There was no one really there. Not 2010. YouTube was just cats doing funny things in water, right? Like it wasn't the respected educational platform that it is now. And I just started making these videos in my kitchen. I mean, they were ridiculous quality. I mean, I had a bottle of vodka in the background of one. My cat was in the background of one. And it was just, this is how you write a CV. This is how you write a cover letter. This is basically how you get a job without me. This is how you don't need a recruitment consultant. You can make this happen yourself. And that's what it was. And I didn't have the guts to call it Aimee Bateman. So I called it Careercake because I like cake. No other thought process went into it. And when people came into the office and I didn't have any jobs, I would literally just say, but look at my videos. Hopefully this will help. And that was as far as it went, Ben. That was literally as far as it went.
Did that cut off work opportunities for you? Like, did it?
No, I didn't. It didn't really make much difference because nobody really took it seriously. People thought I was a bit ridiculous, really. And it got really big. So I think in the first 6 months, I got 5 million hits on my videos. Very difficult to do that now, by the way. There's a huge amount of career content on YouTube now. But at the time, I didn't really have any competition. And eventually, I quit my job to build this community. And I remember people saying to me, I can't believe you quit your job to make YouTube videos. Like, it just doesn't add up. Yeah. And I remember somebody, a bloke at the bar who I'd worked with before, he just went, are you all right for money? Like, are you all right? Like, how are you making money? And I remember just thinking, I'm all right. Like, I just don't think you get what my vision is, but I'm okay, thank you. And that business actually a few years later paid me to go in and set up their own YouTube channel. They had a recruitment company. So yeah, there was a lot of stick around it, but I knew who I wanted to help, and that's all I really cared about. And also, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I lived in a 1-bed flat. I was, I didn't have...
Low. How did you make money from that?
Yeah. So initially, I had a little bit of AdSense, but it was not a lot. I think in the early days, it was like 200-300 quid a month. But then businesses started taking notice. So people would, so for example, AAT, so the Association of Accounting Technicians, I remember them paying me to make a video for their community once a month. So they had a forum, and once a month I would answer some questions on video. And that was really exciting. I was like, I make a 4-minute video answering a recruitment question and they're paying me? Like, this is crazy. I found an editor on people per hour as well to like edit it for like 50 quid or something. And then I started doing the programs for BBC Learning. I started doing keynotes. I started doing presentations and just helping people find their voice in a really competitive market.
That's fabulous. I love that. And at the end of that story, the business gets acquired, and there's a team and there's a venture capital fund, all of that. But in between, it started out, so building an audience, then you backed yourself and you took that leap. But it was a lot of individual, one-to-one, making some videos, custom things, coaching and stuff. So at some point you need a recurring revenue model or product. Yeah. What was that transition?
So spot on. That's not the business that got acquired. Right. So I always think Careercake was like 2 businesses. That was when it was just me building this community, having a great time, having a fabulous time, no pressure.
And helping people.
Just helping people, right? So I built this really big community on YouTube, and people were asking me questions that I didn't have the answer to. And I'm a firm believer, right, that don't give an answer to something if you're not best qualified to give it. Drives me crazy, especially like when you're running a business. You always get people telling you how to run your business, or have you tried this, have you done that? And, a lot of the time it comes from a place of love, right? But a lot of the time it's just about their ego, and it really bothers me. The same is for your career and just life in general. Be really careful who you listen to, because not everybody is best placed to critique you. We definitely want to stay open to the learnings and the lessons, but just because somebody gives you advice doesn't mean you need to take it. And I've always felt really strongly about that. So people were coming in and saying, I'm gay, how do I tell my colleagues? Or I'm being bullied at work. I've got a job, thanks for that, but I'm being bullied. What do I do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm a recruiter. I can get you a job. I mean, I'm 42 and I've learned some stuff. But at the time I was like 30, 31, and I just hadn't been exposed to these problems and these learnings at that time. But I wanted to help them. So I decided that I know a lot of people that know a lot more about things than me. I know a lot about a little bit, but not a lot about a lot. So what I was going to do was use my recruiter skills and go out and find these talented people who could give advice on this specific problem. And then I was going to build a platform where people could access this information. And that's what I did. So I went out and raised venture capital. And for example, you've had a lady called Shola Kay, who's been on your podcast. So Shola was one of our Careercake experts. So in the end, we had 45 experts that we would, I wasn't in my kitchen anymore. We had a lovely soundproof studio over in Bristol that we used to use, and a production team. And I would go out and find people that I was a fan of, like Shola, who is an expert in something like Shola. And then they would answer that topic in a film studio. And then we would put it on a platform. But you're absolutely right. We have to monetize that. Like, that's expensive to do, right? And it's great at this point when you've got like 20 million hits on YouTube, but that's free stuff. So how do you get people to pay for stuff when they are already expecting it for free? And that's where we made some real mistakes. So we started with a B2C model, thinking that people would pay, but they don't. And I understand that. So if they're looking for a job, and specifically the stuff that we were helping with was early careers, so that's the first 10 years.
Not a big budget.
So if they're out of work, they're not going to pay somebody, but they don't have the money. And if they are in work and they're looking for somebody to upskill them, well, now that they're in a job, then our audience are millennials. And typically, the millennials will look to their company to provide them with that education. They wouldn't expect to go out and obviously pay for that themselves. So why would they pay to be a better leader? That's a course or training that their business should pay for. So we were like, we've got this amazing platform. And it was really scary, really, really scary. We had to pivot. So we pivot from B2C to B2B. So we didn't just focus on making job hunting stuff. We made sure that we were doing a lot of onboarding. Yes, you're in a job, but how do you be the best you can be in that job? How do you, provide impact within that job? How do you stay within that job? How do you thrive within that job? And then once we pivoted, that's when the business really took off. We became a licensor of content to LinkedIn Learning. For 6 years, we licensed a huge amount of our content to them. And also employers, forward-thinking employers would hire our videos to either go on there, all videos. So we didn't do any face-to-face stuff, no one-to-one, no face-to-face, no workshops. You could hire one of our experts if you wanted to, and we would make an intro. We didn't take a fee or anything. That was just something we were happy to introduce you to. But they would put our videos, our learning videos, on their own LMS, or they would use our LMS, which was okay. I mean, we didn't spend a huge amount of money on tech, but it was pretty good. And they could create playlists and watch the content on our LMS. That's what we did then. And that's when the business took off. And that's the business model that was acquired.
Wow. Okay. And can I take you back one step? Because many, many businesses, whether they be consulting or technology or products, whatever, they come to a moment where they think this isn't clicking.
Yeah.
And then we hear this word pivot and people, they think they get it and stuff, but it's a massive decision.
Yeah.
It's a fork in the road. You go left, you go right. Well, how do you do that? How do you make that decision? Is there data gathered? Do you get your VC, your investors, and tell them we're going to switch direction? And do they then have a big argument? How do you make that choice?
Exactly that, right? Because the thing is, with a startup, with a venture-backed startup, you're not growing really organically. You get an injection of money into it and you have an idea and you have to make it profitable before the cash runs out. And the cash was running out and we weren't profitable. So you kind of know at some point you're having that feedback loop, hopefully, continually. You don't want to just put something out there and hope people buy it. You want to be building it with your clients, talking to your clients, getting feedback all the time. And we just kept having the same feedback. So the B2C people they'd sign up, have 7 days free, rinse the free content and then cancel. And good for them. Like, we had a whole team of B2C marketers. We were like, good for them. Like, we used to even tell them, do that. Like, if you haven't got any money, just rinse it for 7 days and then cancel. We will even send you, which we did, 2 emails to remind you to cancel so that you don't get offended. And if they did cancel, then they forget. They would write to us and say, we've forgotten. $19.99 has come out of my bank and I really need it. We'd be like, same day, pay it back. So we felt the pain and we understood it. And we were like, we're going to have to go where we're just going to have to pivot. It's either that or die.
But when you pivoted to B2B then, was there a lot of competition for career development learning
platforms? Not at the time. It would have been easier if there was, because the market would have been more educated.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, you're talking 2016.
Yeah.
So, there were very few LMSs out on the marketplace. I mean, we built our own tech. We built our own LMS. It cost us about £150,000, £200,000 to build that. And now if I was building that business now, I wouldn't invest in the tech because there's enough off the shelf. Yeah, there's loads of, there wasn't the option back then. But equally, when we started, LinkedIn Learning didn't exist. So Linda was still a platform. LinkedIn I don't even think they'd been acquired by Microsoft. And if they had, it was really early. So LinkedIn hadn't acquired Linda at that time. It was really early days, and not so much in the US, because I went to Silicon Valley. I spent a week in Silicon Valley raising and pitching investors, and the whole sort of online learning space is very, very mature over there. But in the UK, it just, the big players had it, but it wasn't kind of the norm. Yeah. And that's not a good thing. So yes, it's wonderful to be first to market. I'm not saying that we were first to market by any means, but we were one of the first. But that's a really dangerous place to be in business, because I always say to people now when I'm coaching them or mentoring them in their business, and I mentor a lot of founders now through various accelerator programs. If you're in a conversation where you're educating somebody on the benefit of your product, you need to end that conversation as quick as you can. You need to run as far away from that person as you can, diarise and come back to them and have a conversation in a year or 2 years' time. Let the market educate them. You only want to have conversations with people when they are looking for your product, they understand the value of your product, and they are ready to buy. And those people were really few and far between in 2016. So it was a real slog. But we knew we didn't have to take over the world. We didn't have to be the biggest of the big. When LinkedIn Learning was created, we didn't think, oh, right, we need to compete with them. We just thought we need to just do something that they're not doing, which was, at that time, it was very much sort of that early careers UK market. And we collaborate. We're not out here to compete. We just need enough to add value and collaborate. And that's what we did. I think sometimes if you think we've got to beat everybody, then that's a really negative place. But if you think, no, actually, we just need to create something of value that's different to what other people are doing, and then hopefully collaborate. And I think that, that served us well.
And if I pause you on that one, sometimes you hear in these business talks or business books or whatever, the blue ocean concept or the red ocean concept, there's blood in the water, or it's a beautiful blue ocean where there's wonderful opportunity and there's no competition. So what Amy's pointing out there is that you want a blend, I think. You don't want it where no one's heard of your product. So if you think of electric vehicles, yeah, no problem. They're everywhere and people will understand them and buy them. But what is it, 15, 20, maybe a bit more years ago, they were available, but people go, what? An electric car? What's that all about? And don't trust it. So yeah, you want it where it's now you're looking for points of difference and how you do that. Aimee, when you made that pivot, you said, all right, it's the employers, the companies that we're going to go after because they're going to pay for their career development for their people. How did you actually go out and find that? Because no longer are you just playing to your community and doing B2C one-to-one conversations or however you're doing that. How do you do it in the B2B sense, i.e., getting out there, marketing and selling it?
We had to raise funding first. So we had to go to our existing investors and say, we got it wrong. And typically a venture-backed startup will take between 2 and 3 years to find market fit. So that's often understandable. And your early investors, if they're experienced investors, which hopefully they are, because they don't just bring money, they're bringing some smarts with that. They've built themselves. And everybody that I chose had built a business and exited. I purposely wanted people that had been there and done it. They get it. They know that, it's going to take some time. But as long as you have learnings, right? So one of the first pages in my pitch deck was, this is what we learned last year. So basically, this is what we got wrong and this is what we've learned from it.
So good.
Rather than this is what we did right.
Yeah.
Because you don't learn anything when you get everything right. So these are the learnings. This is what we're going to do differently. This is why. So these are the conversations that we've had. And I had a brilliant head of marketing and product a lady called Lucy Haskins, who was my first employee, who stayed with Careercake for 7 years, and she built it with me. She spent a huge amount of her time speaking to HR experts, HR leads, and just grabbing coffees with people and saying, we want to know your thoughts on this. And then we built what they said they wanted. So I was like, right, I need some more money. And we're going into the studio, and in 4 months, we made 50 courses. So we literally, I didn't see daylight for about 4 months, I remember. But we had some brilliant experts come in to talk about, their topics. And then we built it in public, which I'm a really big fan of. You build it in public. Don't go away for 2 years, build something and then hope people buy it. Build it in public.
What do you mean by build it in public for people?
So our clients became part of our product. So we had businesses like Citibank, Nationwide, businesses that we really wanted to do work with, and we made them part of our product. We were like, who in your business has got expertise? Would they like to come and make a course? And then every time we finished making a course, even though it wasn't available, we were sharing backstage videos, and we said, look, we've built this for you. Are you excited? Right, we're going to the studio on Monday. What do you want us to build? What course do you want? And just having that constant dialogue so that when we were ready to launch it, people were excited. And like I said, we didn't need to take over the world. We had enough. We had enough customers.
So for people listening, that's a huge thing, because for a few different reasons, building in public and getting involvement, input into the creation of the product or the service. Yes, it means that you're building a better product or a better service, you're making it fit their needs and so on. But also you've got their emotional involvement, I think. They're a lot more committed, so that when you go back and say, all right, can I have that checkbook, please? The check, they're far more likely to say yes if you haven't already pre-sold them anyway. And your referral rate, they'll be telling others, because they've got that emotional attachment. We helped create this thing, you should use it too. And so you've got that, not viral, but the referral factor going on. Is that Fair to say, Aimee?
Spot on. I couldn't have said it better. That is exactly right. Because we didn't have the marketing budgets to compete with, the big players. Sometimes you just need to leave your ego at the door and say, we don't have the marketing budget. Even with our experts, we were saying, I don't know if you're going to make any money off this. We think this is going to work and we believe this is going to work, but hey, I'll pay for your train. Just write something really beautiful, really impactful from the heart that's going to add a load of value and just come to the studio. I don't know if we're going to be able to pay you, but do it. You'll get a lot of exposure and I promise you that we will do our best. And that was kind of like what we said to our experts. And a lot of those experts did have courses that were licensed then and did make some money, but some of them didn't. But we try to always just be really honest with them up front. And again, make them part of the product, take them on the journey with you. And we would have experts contact, and the ones that had a big book launch or, had 100,000 followers on Twitter, but they were just, for want of a better word, sorry to say this, they were arseholes. And it was like, but you don't actually like people. And you're just doing this to get another 20,000 followers or whatever. And it's like, yeah, no chance. Because our consumers, that millennial market, they're scrolling 18 meters of content on their phone every single day, mostly video content on their phone every day. They can sniff BS a mile off. Consumers now they're so sophisticated. They're not stupid just because they haven't got a job or just because they're half your age. You're not better than them just because you have a video camera in front of your face. Like, given another situation, they'd run rings around you. So it was really important that we found experts to be part of our platform that just liked people, that didn't have, a stick up their backside. They were just nice people that genuinely wanted to help. And I think we did really well with that. And again, like I said, Shola being one of them, these people were generally experts, but they liked people. So that was a really big part of it. So then you've got them going out and promoting your product as well and telling people about it.
That's smart. Yeah.
But the great thing, what you said, is that when you build in public and you take people on the journey, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And we had that written in our office for years and years and years, because there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of expertise. There's a lot of people helping and wanting to give advice on this. But I don't care until I know that you actually care about me. Then I'll listen. So people, tell them how much you care and then they'll care about how much you know. So I think when you build in public, that just happens naturally, I think.
Yeah. It's funny, and you've shared a few glimpses. I mean, just the fact that when you started doing your videos in the first place on YouTube, it was to help people because, there'd been a gentleman, and you'd see not just him, but plenty of people crying and feeling huge stress and stuff. So you wanted to help them. And then moving on later when you've got the free trial thing and you're reminding people you can cancel. Don't forget to cancel because we don't want to take your money and if it's not going to help you and you're under stress. So there's obviously an ethos in you and in the company that you developed. If I move to the end of that story then, so how did it work that you sold your company?
So we were looking for a buyer. I think at the point we were pretty much done. Like, we'd been building it at that point, I think, for 6-7 years. And we were certainly looking for an exit. I wanted to have a family. I'd had some fertility issues, and going through IVF and doing all of that stuff while you're building a business is pretty stressful. Yeah. And the team were involved as well. And I said, look, does anybody want to step up to the CEO role? Because I'm happy to, had a conversation with the board about that. And they were like, no, I don't think nobody really wants to do this without you, Aim. So why don't we just try and find somebody to acquire us now? Maybe it's time. And I always kind of knew, I think I've got it to here. So in the sense of like, I've built it to this, but I don't think I'm the right person to get it from here to here. And I knew that a bigger team with bigger resources would be able to take what we'd built to the next level. And we all kind of recognized that. I certainly wasn't looking to do another venture raise or anything like that. So it was time. Nice. But it was also COVID. So it was also at a time when we were, actually the opposite. Oh. Because the world needed online learning more than ever. So COVID and lockdown actually was sort of shone a big light on a lot of e-learning platforms and a lot of online learning providers, because people weren't going to work. Employees wanted to engage with their teams and their people while they were at home. So video and online resources was the way to go. So you kind of, when you're exiting a business, you kind of have to exit when you are the most attractive that you can be to a market. So I know a lot of people that will exit businesses and they're not ready to exit. Like, they're really not ready. They're still in it. They're still having fun, but the market conditions mean that if you don't exit now, you might not ever be as valuable as you are now. I think if we waited a couple more years, I don't think we would have been as attractive as we were, because everybody during COVID was upping their content game, right? Yeah, it was just a mixture of a few things. We already knew SocialTalent, so we knew of them. One of my investors had a relationship with them, had been a mentor, I believe, and a friend, was also on their platform in terms of an instructor. They sponsored, we'd won the National Online Recruitment Awards, the NORA Awards. We'd won the best career advice platform in the UK a year before. SocialTalent had sponsored that award. So we'd had conversations with them for a year or so. They knew that we were looking for a year before we actually did the deal. Like I said, good guys. They were looking to expand. They were a really exciting time in their business where, yes, they've got the hiring skills, but they were also looking for more onboarding and more content that could help people. So we did the deal, and it took about 9 or 10 months, I believe, because legals do. But it was a really lovely process. And like I said, I'm so proud, and I continue to refer people to their business. I love their business. I've worked for their business. I've made new content for their business. Yeah, it couldn't have worked out better.
That's funny. So you built in public, but you kind of sold in public too. You were talking to the team. Does anyone want to step up and become CEO or something like that, or other options? And then you're talking to your investors, and then
do you want to replace me? Because that's okay too if you want to do that. I mean, a lot of the reasons why a lot of businesses fail, startup businesses, because the CEO doesn't leave when they're meant to leave. So as a founder, I was really good at building, but sometimes the person that gets it to one step is not the right person. So, and I recognize that. But no, we felt like it was time, and, the opportunity came, the email came, and then I get to be a mum. Yeah, and then I get to go and have a baby. So let's just do it.
So 30 days later, you gave birth. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm curious. So you went through your acquisition and you had a team. I'm guessing you're going to do more. Your business life has not ended. You've got much more to do. The next phase, I'll ask you in a second about that, but would you go down the investment and or team building approach again, or would you do things differently this time?
Well, all the people that were on the journey with me to exit Careercake, they are building their own businesses. They're doing brilliantly. We still have our Christmas parties. We've had 2 Christmas parties since, and we don't even have a business. When you build in such an environment like that you become very close. So it's wonderful to see them succeeding. I have no inclination to build with employees again, although one of those people has a virtual PA business, and she actually is supporting me on this journey, and she is working for me, albeit a freelance basis. I'm not sure I would want to build anything without her. She's brilliant. She keeps me in check. I don't feel at the moment that I have the desire or the energy to build anything big again. I probably will. I know I will. But right now, I'm just being slow, because the last one was so fast. It was a rocket ship. Right. And my honeymoon, I didn't leave my hotel room for 3 days of my honeymoon because we just closed an investment round. We postponed my honeymoon to finish this investment round. And I was so paralyzed by the pressure and just everything. So I sat in my hotel room in Mexico for 3 days, and my poor husband had to go down to the swimming pool all by himself. Like, my life, I don't want to live that life again. As wonderful as it was. Yeah. And I don't want to fly across the world for 72 hours to go to a meeting and then fly home. Like, I don't want that right now. I'm at a different stage in my life. So I'm taking my time and I'm building something again, but I'm going to build slowly. And I'm definitely not going to have investors again. I have a lovely relationship with them. It's not that. It's just that I'm just not there in my life. I've ticked that box. I don't want to build in that dynamic again.
And then you could start an umbrella manufacturing company, or you could become a singer, or you could
I definitely couldn't
products.
Become a singer.
No?
I am Welsh though. So,
yeah.
There's a bit of power there. It's just not in
rich
tune.
history, yeah. But let's say you stay somewhere in the world of work, in that kind of sphere, let's say. How do you choose what to do next? Because people listening to this will be going, oh, I might be similar, or they're thinking of pivots or whatever. What's your thinking process?
So I would say it's difficult when you have multiple passions, and also when you've been a business owner. So that means you have to wear a lot of hats. But ultimately, you equally have to do things that will make money. So for example, one of the things that I thought about doing was to help female founders, so female startup founders. And you mentioned it earlier, less than 1 pence in a pound goes to a female venture-backed founder. There's a real struggle there, and there's a lot of stories that will land differently with female founders. And I thought to myself, maybe that's what I want to do. I did quite a lot of coaching last year and mentoring in that space.
Nice.
But then they can't afford to pay me. And the ones that can afford to pay me, I don't get as much satisfaction from helping them. I get the most joy and the most satisfaction from the ones that are bootstrapping really early on, that don't have any money, and, rolling my sleeves up and helping them. Like, that's where I get more joy there. Like, I love an underdog. And I remember how hard it was for me. So I thought, I don't think I can build a business here, although I do want to spend my time here and I do want to help there. But I don't think I'm going to monetize that. That just doesn't feel right for me. So I'm still deciding at the moment, but I think I'm going to go back to the career space. Having, again, the whole female thing, having been on the journey that I've just been on, where I'm very often the only woman in a room as a tech founder, I have a real sort of affinity to helping brilliant women be seen, heard, and valued in the marketplace. And, we know the stats. We know that 21% of senior leadership teams are female. We know that less than 9% of CEOs and FTSEs are women. We know the stats, and I don't think I'd ever really cared about them in the way that I care about them now, because it just didn't land with me when I was in my 20s. I was in recruitment. There was loads of women in recruitment. It was all about how much money you make. But I entered a part of my career where it does matter and people do notice. I'm not saying it's harder, it's easier. It's just different being a woman in some spaces. So I feel like that's where I'm being drawn to. But at the moment, it's difficult because I have a really big audience, and the majority of people that have commented on my LinkedIn posts and people are asking me, when's your book coming out? They're men. My husband was like, please don't only help women, because I would want a female coach. And if you don't help men, then what about men like me that need a new job or want to excel in their career? Where do they go? I don't want a really alpha strong man. I get that. So I don't quite know where I fit right now, Ben. And I'm being honest with you, and I'm being honest with your listeners. And I'm still on the journey. I know I'll figure it out. And I will have to figure it out because, I'm not a millionaire. I need to make money, right? Like, nursery fees for my children, for my little boy, are expensive, right? But I don't want to make a mistake. So at the moment, I'm still figuring that out. I definitely want to help people in their jobs and, get promoted and be seen and get the jobs and opportunities, quite frankly, that they deserve. But I don't know who my market's going to be just yet.
Can I ask you about that? And by the way, as a side note, the helping women in the workforce, in the career development, things like that, or entrepreneurship, but I think within companies and career development, I think that's a huge market. And as you knew, when you pivoted to the B2B sector, it's the employer who will pay the check, not the individuals. And I think that's a strong area to go in. But
thank you for that. That's really nice feedback, actually. I'll take that on board.
But you're still thinking and trying to work it out, and you don't want to get it wrong and all that sort of stuff. But you went through this process, and you mentioned your product manager or head of product, something like that, who helped you and did lots of learnings and discussions. Is it going to involve a similar process? In other words, what does this journey look like to learn? Because people listening will be going, oh, what is Aimee going to do to discover it? Is it going to be conversations? Are you going to be looking at statistics? What are you going to do?
Good question, Ben. This podcast is so good. I've listened to a few episodes, but I'm going to have to listen to more because your questions are brilliant. So conversation actually with my previous head of product and marketing, who's a dear friend. She's like, niche, come on, niche, that, you have to niche. And I get that when you niche, and I know that I've got to niche. I just don't know which niche just yet. Yeah. When you have to look at this, you have to look at what are people asking you for, but equally you have to go with how you feel. I'm a really big believer in trust the feeling. So when I come off a call with a certain demographic, so, a certain type of customer, how do I feel as opposed to another type of customer? Because whatever I'm going to do now, I'm going to do for the next 10 years. And if anyone's listening and they're thinking about their business, don't necessarily just chase the money, because you'll be really bored in about 12 months' time when you've got money in the bank, but you bloody hate your job or you hate what you're doing. So you need to really focus on the feeling too. And when you niche down, so if I did go down the female market and I helped women, knowing that, I've got this big marketplace and I would be cutting out a huge, because people, when they niche, they think, oh yeah, but that's 50% of the workforce.
Yeah.
And that's a really scary place to be. However, you have to set yourself up for some silence, because you'll get crickets for a while, and that's okay, because you're making content and you're talking to an audience that you haven't maybe spoken to before. If you have spoken to them, you haven't spoken to them in the way that you're speaking to them now. And you have to power through that 3-6 months of crickets, that silence, and trust yourself that your people will find you and you will find them. And eventually it will get noisy again and it'll get busy again. but you will get crickets for a while. And I think that's what's happened with me, is that I forgot that. And I started talking to women, and then I got crickets, and I was like, oh my God, he likes my stuff. And I think what I have to do is remind myself that that's okay, Aimee, that's okay, because your people haven't found you yet and you haven't found them yet.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the journey. But I think it's a majority of things, like you said, stats, conversations, and also gut instinct, but also your market intelligence. Like, I've been doing this for 22 years.
Sure.
Like, I know some stuff, right?
Yeah.
And backing yourself, that again, people, if they know how much you care, they will care about you. So
big time. The market has changed. Like you said, when you started, YouTube was just for cat videos. And obviously that's changed, and Linda and Microsoft acquisitions, all sorts of stuff. But there's probably a lot more in the market nowadays for career development and stuff. I know in the HR sector, there are people who are helping HR executives become the VP of HR. It's just that little area. Or there'll be career development for men, career development for women. Probably Careercake started for the earlier career folks, as opposed to executives, so there's all sorts of ways you can slice and dice, I guess. But one thing I did pick up very much so, and it's such a cliche, but this whole find your why thing, that came through very strongly in terms of you wanted to help people and just help them when they go home, have a better family life and a career because of just getting through the door and getting that role. So what happens next then? How can people listening to this, how can people keep in touch with you, learn more about you, or follow on your journey? Because, seen, heard, valued, who knows what's coming down the line. Do you want to share what's next and how people can follow on that journey?
Yeah, thanks, Fem. So at the moment, I'm being really focused with platforms that I choose. So LinkedIn is the platform of choice at the moment. So I've come off sort of Instagram and all my other platforms. I actually don't have any personal social media platforms. I have no personal social media presence in my life whatsoever. So I am just on LinkedIn, and I have a YouTube channel that I'm just starting as well. So my name is Aimee Bateman. So you could just put that into YouTube or that into LinkedIn and find me. But at this stage, I don't really have anything to sell, right? There's nothing to sell. There's nothing. I have nothing to sell you because I don't know what I'm building just yet. But this summer, I'm going to build something. We're looking at in about sort of 4 or 5 months' time. But for now, just connect with me, get in touch, share your story. Did you learn something today? Was there something that resonated with you? Is there something that you think I should learn? Just to connect with people. I think that's what gives me the most joy.
I love it. Well, I've learned so much, and I love the journey you've been on. You created something that people really wanted and that helped them. But along the way, you've also created great products, learning opportunities, but the relationships, they seem to have been strengthened the whole way through. The team members, the VC people, even the people who acquired the business. I just love that everyone seems to be smiling along, and even people who are part of the team in the business that got acquired, they're all building their own businesses.
They're doing brilliantly.
Well done. Yeah, that's great, and well done to them. So Aimee, thank you very much. We will have the links to your LinkedIn and the YouTube channel as well. Wish you the best for the future, and thank you very much for sharing your story today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bev.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.